Hey, Semantic crew, want to thank you for your dedication to our success. The battle plan is great help to me as it gives me the exact direction to go and steps to take. Okay, thanks, Jenny. I appreciate that. He says, I am planning to switch all my money sites to HTTPS. Will my site lose backlinks that were previously built? No, they won't. Should I do some redirecting on domain level or cPanel, or will it auto 301 redirect to HTTPS? Well, typically there will be some sort of an HT access directive that will now. All right, so there's plugins like Simple HTTPS is one of them that will basically create a record in your htaccess file. It'll add a directive to your htaccess file that automates the redirection of HTTP to HTTPS. So it can be handled via plugin. And that's typically how it's done. Now, I've run into some crazy weird issues when switching an existing site over to HTTPS that required more effort than I was willing to put into it to fix it. So I've just gone to Upwork and hired somebody to go in and correct the issues. And so now, it's just my go-to strategy. If I'm switching a site over from regular to HTTPS, I just go to Upwork and hire somebody from Upwork to handle it for me. Or if you've got a good host, and that's the key. If you've got a good host, a lot of times the hosts will take care of it for you. All you got to do is contact them and say, look, I'm doing a switch over to whoever your host is. If they're decent, you just tell them, like, look, I'm buying an SSL certificate. I would like to transfer a WordPress site or whatever site all the way over to HTTPS. If I'm running any issues, would you help me to correct them? And a good host will take care of it. Some of the more cheaper shared hosting services won't. Okay, but yeah, as far as the HTTPS thing, the auto redirects, basically you should just try it on your own with the plugin. If it's an existing site with a ton of content, I would have a backup plan ready, or I would just go ahead and hire somebody to do it, or ask a host to do it for you if they're willing to, so that you don't run into any downtime while the errors are being corrected, or you'll minimize that. If you try to do it on your own first, then, I recommend you do it on a site that is relatively new or has, very few pages and or content posts, because otherwise it could end up being a bit of a mess for you to clean up after the fact, right? After you've made the switch. So again, it's just a matter of how big is the project? How critical is it? If downtime is going to cause significant loss of income or revenue, then I would recommend that you line up some professional help in the beginning. And it's not very expensive, guys. I mean, you can get somebody from like the Philippines, for example, to do HTTPS or SSL installation and updating the website for any errors or CSS functions. And sometimes scripts and stuff will go awry. All that stuff can be fixed relatively cheap. I mean, I pay somebody $40 or $50 to have the site gone through with a fine-tooth comb and make sure everything's correct. And so that's relatively inexpensive, because if I had to do it, it could take me several hours, and my time is worth more than that, in my opinion. I'm willing to pay that to have somebody else do it for me, if that makes sense. Anybody have any comments on that?
Yeah, I have it's really simple, because if you move everything over to HTTPS and you copy the site, I mean, you clone the site and you move it over to HTTPS, and you don't change the URL structure, all that's changing is it's going from HTTP to HTTPS, and you could just do a site-wide 301. Where people run into problems is when they go to HTTPS and they start changing URLs, and they start changing the CSS, and they start changing the basic framework of the website, because 301 was designed to let Google know that the content from this place, whether it's a page or an entire site, has moved to another URL, which HTTPS is another URL because of the S. At any rate, if you're doing that, if you're cloning the website, same theme, same everything, you're not changing anything, and you're going to HTTPS, then you do a site-wide 301, and you're not going to have any issues. You shouldn't run into any 404s, although you should still have a plugin or anything else that will let you know if there are any issues, which can be easily solved. So I mean, that's my take on it. It's very simple, unless you start fiddling with it and making changes, and you mess it up to the point where you start getting a bunch of 404s. And by the way, yes, you will see a slight drop when you move from HTTP to HTTPS, it's like anything else. It'll start dancing, but it should come back to wherever it was ranked before the move. If
Yeah,
you
you'll see the site dance, but you won't lose any backlinks, is what I'm saying.
No, not because the URL structure has remained the same, and the 301 is site-wide.
Yeah.
The URLs at the destination are the same, and so it's pushing the links from the HTTP to the HTTPS the same way. So no, you won't lose any links.